All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. My name is Dave Bittner, and I am the host of the CyberWire Daily podcast. And today I am excited to gather this group of industry professionals for our Success Secrets from Security Leaders panel discussion. Before we dive into our questions and our panel discussion today, why don't we do a round of very brief introductions from all of us? Josh, why don't you start things off for us?
Sure. I'm Josh Copeland. I am the Director of Managed Security Services at Quadrant, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Tulane University.
All right, let's move on to Kathy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Harp. I'm Director of Security Operations and Engineering at Avnet. We're a global electronics distribution company.
All right, Simon.
Hi, I'm Simon Pope. I'm currently the head of the Cyber Fusion Center at Geico. I come from Sonos, and before that, Microsoft, where I ran security incident response for the Microsoft Security Response Center.
And last but not least, Kyle.
Hey, I'm Kyle Dickinson. I'm a senior security solution architect that focuses on threat detection and incident response for Amazon Web Services. Also run around with a camera and microphone talking about cloud security on a regular basis.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody, and thank you all for taking the time for us here today. Let's start off with a little more background information so that our audience can get a good idea of where we're coming from here. Let me start with you, Kathy. Can you give us a little bit of the background, your career path, and how you reached your current leadership position?
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I'm honored to be talking with everyone today. So yes, I started off truly in the trenches. I thought I would forever just be a subject matter expert. I love diving deep in technology, self-professed nerd. That was my career path. But I had a director who repeatedly asked me over and over again to take on managing a team. And I finally, very reluctantly agreed to it. And it was a little bumpy. Everybody survived. Got some training in that space. It worked out well in the end. But yeah, I would say that, it's just been a journey really of coming in every day, doing the job in front of me, gaining people's trust through successful projects and things like that. But yeah, over the years, transitioned through systems administration roles, architecture into management, and now into leadership where I've been with our cybersecurity org for the last 5 years in director role. But it had some great mentors along the way. And super important, and ultimately had some sponsors who I'd gained their trust, so they were willing to put their reputation out there on the line to advocate for me to have new roles and new responsibilities and higher levels of accountability. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Kyle, how about you next?
Sure, yeah. So, my trajectory to where I am today is a bit abnormal. There were classes for how to do the cyber thing when I was growing up. So a lot of it was self-taught. And I was very fortunate to have those that would take a chance on me and, invest their time to develop me into who I am today. I started off with goofing around on the internet as a kid, found out that I could turn this into a career, found out that career has multiple avenues when it comes to this term of security. And I found that kicking sandcastles or, red teaming was fun, but preventing people from kicking over sandcastles was a lot more fun. And so I really found a passion and calling into doing blue teaming or defense. And that's where, the long and short of it, I could talk all day, which I know we have limited time, but I'm just very fortunate that I had individuals that wanted to invest their time and saw something in me that I probably didn't see myself. So.
All right. Well, Josh, you're up next. Great to see you back again this year. Fill us in. What was your journey here?
Yeah, so like most of my peers, I accidentally fell into cybersecurity. I joined the Air Force right out of high school, was not in a IT or cybersecurity field, but my unit had a requirement for, at the time, what they called a work group administrator, or the local SysAD, and they went, well, Josh, you're kind of nerdy. You like to play with computers. Do you want to do this as an additional duty? I went, sure, why not? And that kind of snowballed into, multiple different projects that I worked on, eventually retraining formally into the cybersecurity field, doing some really cool stuff with the Air Force over a 20-year career, retiring from there, moving into, that big step out into the real world in my first big boy job, working for General Dynamics, and then moving to AT&T and Bose before landing here with Quadrant. and kind of doing a little bit of everything from desktop support, routers and switching, servers, pen test, doing GRC policy, and kind of loving every bit of the cybersecurity space that I'm able to get my hands into.
And last but not least, again, Simon, how about you?
Oh, me. I have a long and checkered history. I started off as a software engineer with the Department of Defense in Australia, working on submarines, submarine software systems, and progressed from there to being a serial entrepreneur, having started, I think, 3 or 4 startups. I think there's 4, depends on how you count them. Ended up at IBM Research, looking at one thing, and left that, and ended up working for the government doing national security work. So, but not cybersecurity at that stage. It was more dealing with human beings and traditional security issues, so to speak, pre-cyber. And then I found myself at Microsoft after my last startup, and I was asked to join the Microsoft Security Response Center. So I came in not knowing anything formally about cybersecurity, but having been a software engineer for many years, understanding how you could write bad code, whether intentionally or not. And started off in vulnerability management there, and I took to it like a duck to water and a duck to air, flies and swims. And then I found myself just loving it and immersed in it for the last decade and a bit, and just progressing my career in that space as something very natural.
Well, I don't know, Simon, on behalf of you and I just want to say that I find myself a little bit intimidated by the epic degree that Kyle and Josh are both capable of growing beards. I'm not sure that I could ever put myself in that category. So tip of the hat to both of you men for that capability. But getting, serious here for a second, we're talking about success today. And as several of you have pointed out, you came to this in kind of a non-traditional way. I'm curious, starting off and talking about the technical side of things, when you look at the tools that you believe people should have, the capabilities from a technical point of view, what are the things that you think are really important? Simon, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a few things. You have to understand the tools are got to be the right tools for the right job. So understanding what is your job, what are you trying to protect, what's important, what is the risk profile for the organization you're trying to defend, who are its customers, what is important to them. So start with that. And then once you have that context, you can make smart decisions about what signal do you monitor, how do you get the signal, what's the most effective method of monitoring that signal and getting alerts from it. And again, depending upon the size of the organization, how many customers you've got, you're going to be looking at how do I scale and automate, because I don't want to throw people at the problem time and time and time again. You're going to have a certain amount of people for judgment, even with AI. You're going to have to still have human beings, not just to do things, but to make judgment calls, because that's what human beings are excellent at, and that computers still, frankly, are pretty not so good at. But you don't want to have, you move from 1,000 systems to 10,000 systems. You don't want to have to, you don't want to have to get 10 times the number of staff. So how do you do it with, say, double the number of staff? So always thinking about scale and automation. So approach it with an engineering mindset, and that's where success here lies, in selecting the right tools.
Kathy, do you concur there? Any additional things to add?
Absolutely. I would never disagree with Simon, but I will add on a little bit to what he was saying about context. The tooling, where you want to build your technology and tooling kind of depends on the area of cyber. It's such a broad field. I love that a few of you said earlier, hey, this field didn't even exist when we started off our careers, right? It's something we just evolved into, but it's just such a wide landscape across cyber. So when I think about it, I'm like, well, let's say you want to go into GRC, you want to build your career there. Do you really need to know IP subnetting? Do you really need to know the layers of the OSI model? Maybe not. But in general, I think that it's just super good to get the core basic, maybe in some ways boring to folks, IT and cyber basics in place. But most importantly, overall, just have this sense of curiosity, right? Ask why. Why does it work that way? How does it work? So it's not just about the tooling, but some of the why behind the tooling. And no matter what your tooling is, no matter what area you go into cyber, always remain curious, and build your resilience up there. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Josh, I'm curious, as you're building your teams, I think something we've seen is there's been an adjustment and evolution in some of the kind of rote requirements. We even have seen like the federal government is saying that they're not going to be requiring degrees for certain positions the way that they used to. What is your approach to that? I mean, in terms of how important is it for people to be able to check those boxes versus how important is it for them to be able to come in and say demonstrate their capability and experience?
So I think for me, the two most important things that I need from anybody that I'm hiring, and this is regardless of level, whether it's entry level or executive level, is I need you to have a passion for learning and I need you to have critical thinking. And if I can get someone that has those two things, I can teach you anything else. So, yes, degrees and certifications are, intrinsically good for some things. A degree will tell me that you've done, long-term project management, you can work in a group, hopefully you develop some writing and critical thinking skills. Certifications tell me that you knew this information on this particular day and time. And if you're really, really good at your job, you've continued to grow those. But are they really true indicators of what your knowledge is? Maybe, maybe not. Going into the more demonstrated skill sets is where you're really going to see a lot more value going forward, being able to say, yes, I know how to do this thing. Or even more importantly, I have the base skill sets to be able to learn to do this new thing. The things that we are doing now did not exist 5 years ago and absolutely did not exist when I started my career in 1998, showing my age a little bit. So having just the ability to learn and grow is far more important than having a master's degree in information assurance and a CISP for a SOC analyst. We just see crazy things that exist in those worlds where people are putting job descriptions together.
Yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on the technical side of things?
On the technical side of things, kind of to just circle back to what Simon and Kathy mentioned, there's customers that try to throw all the tools that are out there at the same problem without looking at the current tooling landscape that exists within their environment to understand, are their tools operating at its full capability? Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there that do overlap, but understanding, mention what Simon mentioned, the right tool for the right job. If you need to put a nail into the wall, you're probably not going to use a screwdriver. You can. It'll take you a long time to do it. You'll probably get some cuts and bruises, but it's not going to be the most effective way to approach the solution that you're trying to achieve to the technical aspect of things.
When we talk about the technical skills, people often describe the companion to that as the soft skills. I have to admit that that raises my dander a bit because I like to think of them as essential skills. I don't, to me, like soft underplays the importance of those things, of being able to present, like Josh said, to write, to be able to stand in front of a group of people and share your thoughts about something. How do you, in your leadership positions, balance the importance of those two things? In a technical field, how important are those, I'm going to use the word essential skills? Josh, why don't you start things off for us?
Yeah, I agree with you. They are absolutely essential skills. It doesn't matter how great you are as a technician, if you cannot explain to other people in a way that they can understand what you need from them, particularly if you're talking to your organization's leadership. How are you translating the dollars and cents for them that are bits and bytes to you? I can talk things like CVSS scores all day long, but it means nothing to somebody outside the field. I need to be able to translate that into what matters to them. And that's where all these soft essential skills come into play, being able to actually connect with people as a human rather than just, looking at the screen and saying, this is what's wrong, or this is the tool I need because of this vulnerability. What does that truly mean to the overall organization? It's when you start talking quantification of cybersecurity risk in a more holistic point of view.
Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Yes, 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 to all you just said. And I would add to that, yeah, the stay humble. So um, it, we tend in this field, IT, and I find it even more. I came from the infrastructure more side of IT and over to the cybersecurity side, and we don't want that reputation of all being arrogant, right? And if you want to be very collaborative, you've got to build those relationships, and as has been said, be a very good communicator. Think about like, hey, I want to go over to this team and tell them, hey, I need you to patch faster, patch more, but let's serve it up a little butter. Have a good relationship there in the first place, and you're going to get your ass quicker, and you're going to get it, better, right? So collaborate, communicate well, and stay humble. It goes a long way with folks.
Yeah, I agree. Simon, what are your thoughts here?
Dave, I love how you said that they were essential skills. I completely agree with you. And I think when we're talking about essential skills, we're talking about in terms of communication style, relationship building, leading with empathy, and also demonstrating respect. And these things, modeling the behaviors you're expecting of your staff, modeling the pro-social behaviors that make the workplace a safe place. And I mean, just even in terms of, I'm not trying to be politically correct here, but when I say safe, what I really mean is effective. Like if people don't feel safe, that they can't say something for fear of being misheard and misunderstood, blamed, having anger thrown at them, then they'll shut up and we're not going to get the most out of people. So that's really important. And as your career progresses and you have more and more responsibility, it becomes even more important to not only try to understand where people are at, but try to understand what are outside of your team with your business partners when you ask them to patch vulnerabilities, for example. Like understand what are their pressures, what are their blockers, what are their challenges, understanding their priorities and understanding their business priorities relative to what you're asking them to do so that you can make the right ask of them in the right way and even help them get the right support. So as your career progresses in cybersecurity, those soft skills become even more important, so to speak, soft skills, than they were at the start of your career. So there's something you should always work on.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm interested in your thoughts here. I mean, you are very deliberate in being a communicator.
That has not been the case throughout my career. Going back to mentioning, I had very fortunate events to where individuals invested time in me. I got to learn from some of the best teachers in the cybersecurity space throughout the world. And, I was never, I won't say never, I wasn't an effective communicator until later in my career. And looking back at it, I realized that being an effective communicator is very important for multiple reasons, as Simon, Kathy, and Joshua mentioned, but also because of my non-traditional way of my career progression, I relied on people's knowledge a lot. And one thing I try to advocate a lot is making things approachable as possible. If you're communicating some new information, people might be afraid to even ask the question. But when they finally muster up the courage to ask you, you don't want it to be like, thanks for wasting my time. Here's your answer, or go ahead and use a search engine for that. It's, hey, let's take this learning experience and what else can I help you with? And that's something that I really, really try to advocate to individuals that I interact with is make things fun, make things approachable, and then you're going to foster a better community in the long term. And you're not going to be perceived as, oh, I asked that person a question, they made me feel like I was just, that I shouldn't even be here kind of thing.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, and this is something that I wondered about over the years. I think particularly in the earlier days of cybersecurity becoming a profession when things came to be standardized and there were expectations and frameworks. Anyone who's been in a leadership position or has been in this business for a long time has come across that person, that employee who is uncommunicative, difficult, arrogant, and yet someone will ask, why is that person on our team? And they'll say, well, because they're brilliant. Or I've heard folks like that described as being national treasures. Their brilliance is such that we cannot do without them. The question I'm getting to is that mindset, as we continue the evolution and maturation of cybersecurity as a profession, is that acceptance of that kind of attitude going by the wayside? Are we moving on from that? Or as you build a team, is it good to have, or beneficial to have that spectrum of even types of thinking about things? That's a long question, but Kathy, can I start with you on that one?
Well, first answer by saying I think it is incredibly important to have diversity of thought on your teams, to have different types of personalities on your team, and folks come in at just a different angle, different approach, and it just I think the real action and the problem solving happens in the messy middle, right? And yes, there's going to be some friction there. That said, I think that part of doing the job is not just like say, oh, I'm working in my SIM, I've got this detection, I've got to give their best response, I'm in here doing this. But the other part of the job is work well with your teammates. That's the job too, right? Work well across your peer groups, right? Understand the context of the business you're in. You're not just there to, cybersecurity doesn't exist for the sake of cybersecurity. It exists for some other purpose, right? And so always have that context in mind, and yeah, pull out of the weeds sometimes to go, hey, what's really happening around me? And so be aware. So then you can provide so much more value in your position, right? That's the job. Provide value in the position, and you'll just elevate. We get out of the weeds sometimes, and look at what's going around us. Work on those soft skills, or like what you said there, the essential skills. You're just going to elevate, and these things you were doing down here are actually going to get done better because you're going to have so much more interaction with other people that can provide new ideas and new thoughts and ways of doing what you were actually working on there.
Yeah, let's jump in. Simon, what are your thoughts?
Oh, 100% with what Kathy said. I'd add that diversity of thought is really important in a team. You want people from different backgrounds, different perspectives. But being a different thinker doesn't give you license, doesn't give anyone license to be a jerk. So, part of your performance is how do you actually make the team, the company effective? And that goes to your communication and your behaviors as well. So first of all, you're going to find promotion difficult if you don't start getting that under control. If you're one of those people that rubs people up the wrong way, I would remind you, the good news is your manager is supposed to be there to help you, to give you the honest feedback, to provide a bit of a mirror so you can see yourself and what's going on, and you can make adjustments. Because a lot of this stuff is learned behavior. It comes from insecurities, and we've all got insecurities, so don't be offended, please. We all have insecurities, no matter what age we're at. But part of your manager's job is to help you overcome those, and not as a therapist, but as your manager, so that you can decide what you're going to do. And honestly, they'll help make your career more successful if you address those behaviors.
Joshua, what are your thoughts here?
So for me, one of the very first things that I think that anybody in this field needs to do is you need to check your ego at the door. If you are consistently, in your opinion, the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong group of rooms. You have given yourself no opportunity to grow. You have given your team no ability to have great ideas. So from that perspective, you really need to Kathy's point, be humble. Understand that there are going to be people who have great ideas, who see things from a different perspective than you, because ultimately that's what we want. If I hired everybody that had the exact same background as me, we're all going to look at the problem the exact same way. And from a security perspective, that is the absolute worst thing, because we're going to see the same picture and we're going to miss the 12 blind spots we have because we don't have someone looking at it from this other angle here and this other angle there. We really need to have an environment where everyone has the ability to collaborate. And if you are one of those people who, feels you have to be the smartest person in the room and you are not willing to collaborate, it doesn't matter how awesome you are at your job, you're actually a drain on my overall team. And I'd rather get you out and get someone in that wants to be there and wants to collaborate with the rest of the group, because that's going to give me a higher performing team overall.
Kyle, is that your experience as well?
It is, but I'm going to take it a different angle as well, because Simon, Kathy, Joshua, they all had very great points that I was going to bring up, but thanks for doing it for me. One thing that was brought up is feedback. And one thing I learned early on, I wear my insecurities on my sleeve. I'll be open and honest about that. Imposter syndrome galore. But when it comes to feedback, we should look at it from, one, did we get asked for feedback? Because getting unsolicited feedback could also seem like, an attack on ego, or just, maybe that person doesn't work that way. But if someone asks for feedback, whether it be good or bad, we should look at it as feedback to just improve ourselves either way. It's not an attack on us individually. It's, hey, how can we contribute to the team better? How can we do things in a more efficient manner? Because security really is a team sport. I have not seen a security operations center have one person do everything for, response to a security event. It's truly a team sport. And that's where that diversity in thought and experiences also come to play too. Because again, if we all want to paint the same picture, it's going to be, for lack of better words, boring. If we bring in each unique experience and train of thought and make it a collaborative effort, we will do better things. Be it better, faster, stronger. There's a song in there. So I truly believe in embracing the diversity in thought and just how people interact, but also to stamp it with, just because you're a brilliant mind doesn't mean that you can be, a jerk to individuals. Maybe there's opportunities to learn how to communicate better, going back to the essential skills of how to communicate. Maybe they just never had someone take the time to approach how to communicate in a more effective manner. Or there's those whole personality tests of, hey, I'm this type of thinker and person. Can you communicate this way with me? It's kind of like hacking a human, right? And so finding ways to approach communication and feedback is also very important.
How important is it as a leader in your position? Let me take it back to you, Kathy, here. To be able to go to the powers that be for you to say, I want to provide opportunities for my team for these areas of improvement. Not just the technical side, keeping up with their certs, with their training, that sort of thing, but if someone wants to take an online class about public speaking or something like that, like this is something that we as an organization value.
Oh, I've been very fortunate to be supported in that, and I've gone at times and asked for that and pursued it myself, right, for my own build-up of my own soft skills, and advocated that for my team, and have been very fortunate to be supported in that. And yes, it is equally important to build your skills in that area, and don't just wing it. Like literally, there are courses in it, right? And there's some really good ones out there. And I would say also just spend time watching how others around you are interacting, and learn from what works well for them and what doesn't, right? If you don't have the time right now to invest in the training, you can still in your everyday interactions garner some of those soft skills. Yeah, so it's super, super important.
Josh, can I just broaden it out a little and talk about keeping the team up to speed and in the day-to-day operations, making sure that you carve out time for people to be able to make those improvements?
Yeah, one of the first things I did in every organization I'm in, I do 3 books I provide to everyone that works directly for me every year: a leadership book, a technical book, and kind of like a how-to book in an area that's loosely affiliated with what we're doing. And then I make sure that when we are doing our scheduling and our personnel, staffing and models of that nature, that there is time built into their work environment to do that professional development. I'm not expecting you to go, 90, 95% utilization all day, every day for, months on end. I need to build in the opportunity for you to work on a side project, for you to, go do some professional development, go take a boot camp, go do a thing that's maybe not directly related. For the example you gave, a speech class. Some of the stuff that we're doing, presenting at a conference is a huge hurdle for some folks because they just don't have the ability to do public speaking. They're absolutely brilliant, but if I allow them the opportunity to grow that skill internally, we're going to get a lot more out of them as an organization, and they're going to feel valued. And when people feel valued, that's when you truly get the most out of them.
Simon, what are your thoughts there?
I think it's really important that every employee, every worker, think about their how they're going to learn and grow. And as an organization, we typically in organizations, we try to ask them periodically, tell us as part of your review how you're going to learn and grow in the next period. And really what we're asking the employee to do is to stop and think about it. Like, what do they want to grow in? How do they want to grow? How do they prefer to learn? And to put together some sort of high-level plan that they then can have a discussion with their manager about and get support to achieve that. Because some people learn organically and will grow organically. Some people like and prefer formal training of some sort. So it's really about whatever the employee needs in order to grow personally and professionally in their area. And it's going to be different because they're going to have different career aspirations, different career goals. So it's about making sure that we empower the employee. And then when they ask for something that's quite reasonable, make sure we give it to them. So there's an onus on the employer to make sure they truly support their employee in achieving what for the most part I've only ever seen quite reasonable career goals.
Kyle, what are your thoughts here? I mean, can we touch on the notion of direct mentorship, and is that something that has been part of your leadership journey as well?
It has, be it being mentored or being the mentor. And I feel like, when it comes to learning, there's different modalities. And I'll get to the mentorship bit in just a moment. And, you have the hands-on, you have the trial by fire, which, you just want to experiment with the things. So you have a sandbox you can play in. You have the formal training, the classroom training, hey, I'm going to watch a bunch of videos online type of training. And I think as a mentor and being mentored, I found that the success that I've found in mentors and mentees is meeting them to where they like to learn. How do they like to receive information? How do they like to learn new topics? Some may say, I do best learning a particular topic when I watch a video, and then I just try to work on it. And if it breaks, I figure out how it broke, and I'm a better person because of it. Others may say, I need to read a book and then take a quiz at the end. So being a mentor and mentee, just meeting them where they're at to understand how can we be most effective in helping them expand their knowledge and their skill set in a way that they prefer. Because you don't want to try to put a square peg into a round hole, even though there's videos online that show that works. But it's just, matching the personalities too. Again, going back to understanding the human. We're all human. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And so we need to meet the human to where they're at and understand what is going to be the most effective way to use our time together. Because time itself is also a scarce resource.
I'm curious, Kyle, you mentioned sort of at the outset here that something you contended with is imposter syndrome. And I think probably everyone on this panel has dealt with that to various degrees, certainly over everybody's nodding, right? Like to various degrees over our lives. When you actually found yourself in a leadership position, and I'll start with you, Kyle, what did that feel like? I guess what I'm getting at is, does anyone ever feel completely ready to take on that task and have to be the person who is leading the charge with the team who's been put under your responsibility?
So I'll take what is probably a 8-year story in the making and kind of dwindle it into 30 seconds so we could all understand where I'm coming from. So when I lived in Seattle, I would commute to downtown via bus, and the first stop would be, once we crossed the bridge, the first stop would be right across the campus of my current employer, Amazon. And I was always just lavished with like, wow, I would probably never get to work there because I don't have a degree. I only have a GED, but man, it would be so cool to work there. Fast forward 8 years, I find myself with peers asking me questions of how to do things for their customers, or how can I develop how to be a better speaker, Or, hey, does this technical solution make sense? And I'm like, what? How did I get here? And I think it kind of goes and coincides with understanding how can we just develop better relationships. And yeah, I don't think we're ever ready. And to this day, some of the best instructors that I've ever met, they say once you start becoming comfortable and overconfident presenting to a very large room, you need to check yourself, because then you start to get complacent. Then you start thinking, I'm at the peak. I have nowhere else to go. I've learned it all. I am the wizard amongst wizards. We need to change the lens, because if wizards continue to talk to wizards, we're not going to grow. We're just going to be in this rut, keep doing the same thing. I constantly find avenues to learn more by saying yes to a lot. I over-index myself sometimes. Sorry, boss, if you're listening. But the point is just putting yourself out there to learn more. Finding people you could trust, people that can meet you where you're at in your journey.
Well, I think we touched on the notion of humility earlier, that in my mind, that's a big part of it as well. That in my experience, your team appreciates a leader who has the humility to say, I don't have it. I don't have all the answers. I don't have it figured out, but, together we will get there. Has that been your experience, Kathy? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I think that transparency goes a long ways. Yeah, telling them some of your bumps and bruises along the path, right? And we're not perfect. We're progressing, right? That's what I always aim for. I'm going to make mistakes, but yeah, and have some grace. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others, right? So yeah, if I've gotten to a place that, as Kyle said, I'm too comfortable, I'm too confident, I've become complacent, then yeah, that's not good. So I stay in that uncomfortable place. That's just how it is sometimes, if you're going, and I think it's okay at times in your career to be comfortable and stay in your role and stay steady. And maybe that's where you're going to be. I had an employee for years. He was so rock solid. He was just so valuable, and he didn't aspire to move up. And that was okay. But he just did his job so well, right? And he pushed himself, right? But if you're aspiring to move up in your career trajectory, or even laterally over to different areas in your career, right? You're going to be uncomfortable, right? And that's just part of it. As a friend says to her child every now and then, that's hard. She says, well, put your helmet on. Yes, that's a hard thing. Let's go out there and just do it anyhow. Do it scared, right? Just do it scared sometimes. It's what we have to do sometimes. And that imposter syndrome, it kind of comes and goes at different times in your career, right? You move into a new role, and yes, in that new role, in that new area, you're going to have imposter syndrome. If you don't, you haven't leapt very far, right? But it'll go away, but it's going to come back, and it may not come back in a long season, but maybe it just comes back. Somebody's asking you this whole new domain area, and you have no expertise in it. Like we said earlier, just admit it. I don't have the answers,
Right.
But I'll go find them for you, right? I'll go
Right.
find people who know those answers. So, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just chime in and say, like, to me, at some point along the lines, I had the realization that saying I don't know is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength. To have the confidence to say I don't know, but I'll find out, or I know who I can ask. So let's go find that answer together.
It earns
Simon,
trust as well.
What's that, Kyle?
It certainly earns trust as well, to instead of just try to tiptoe around it. It's, hey, I don't know, but let me get you the right answer.
Yeah. Simon, I think what Kathy said kind of alludes to this notion that not everybody is motivated in the same ways. And as a leader, you have to figure out what it is that's going to get somebody going. Some people it's money, some people it's a position or status. How do you come at the folks that you work with to make sure you're fulfilling them in the ways that are meaningful to them?
Wow, that's a really hard question to answer. I don't think I've ever approached it in the way you suggest, but here's how I look at that. Folks need to be self-motivated at some level. I'm not there to try to whip them on or to provide them tasty treats, so to speak. Imagining it's a circus, I don't know. there's sometimes it can feel like a circus, depending on what incident is going on. But I don't operate in that way. I want to empower everybody to achieve what they want for themselves, right? And as much as that can align with the goals of the company and the customers, then that is a good thing. We want to align. So really, I want them to tell me to tell their employer, what do they need? What excites them? What do they need more of? What do they need less of? What's more important to them? And to find the right balance for them. So, as you say, some people, they want title. Some people want money. Some people want a better work-life balance. And that can be about position, that latter one especially. But all those other things. Some people just want to achieve and have impact and they're less concerned about the money. They want a certain amount of money, but they don't want all the money. So it's really about helping each person find the role, the place, the mix, the deal that's best for them. And I really like it when it's driven from them rather than driven by me, because I don't want to. You can get into some weird sort of situations where maybe you feel like you're manipulating others. And I've just avoided that because I don't want to do that.
Mm. Well, we're coming down to the last few minutes here of our time together, and I'd like to do maybe a little bit of a speed round with all of us here. I'm going to start with you, Josh. For folks who are aspiring to join this industry, who are looking to get their start, what are the words of wisdom? What are the things that you wish you had known getting into this that you can pass along to them? Josh?
Find the community that's in cybersecurity in your area, whether it be physically with associations or out on Discord, LinkedIn, whatever social media tool that you peruse, but get involved with that community, because this particular field is so into helping each other grow and growing the field. So that's the easiest thing you can do to get the most juice for the squeeze, is just get involved in the community and find folks who are absolutely willing to mentor you.
Kyle, how about you?
Exactly what Josh said. Community, online, in real life. If you have an opportunity to go to like a local security conference, hey, I'm Kyle. I really like cloud security. What cool things do you like to do? Try to meet people. Yes, that is an uncomfortable situation for some individuals, and I can respect that. But really, someone I adore said, to win the lotto, you got to buy some tickets. So you got to kind of put some stake into it to be able to get a return and just grow yourself and get into it. Don't let other people's journeys dictate how you're going to go about yours. Everyone is unique. I guarantee you there's probably some similarities in that we all do security things, but we all do different security things here on this panel. Don't try to compare yourself to others. Comparison's the killer of joy, as I've learned throughout my career. Yeah, truly it is. And
well, Simon,
yeah.
No, thank you, Kyle. And Simon, let me have you be up next here.
To add to what Kyle and Josh have said, I think conferences and all that activity are great. I would also add that if you know someone, or if you know someone who might know someone that could be a good mentor, that you could ask questions. Don't be shy. Go and ask them. You'll be amazed how many of us we always say yes when somebody wants to talk to us and ask us questions about the field and like, what's the best path for them? We're here to give advice. All you need to do is reach out. And I've probably set myself up badly there, but if you reach out to me, I will happily engage.
Kathy, I want to give you the last word. What are your words of wisdom here for our viewers?
Do exactly what Simon, Kyle, and Josh just said. Do that's my words of wisdom. And yeah, just if you find it awkward and difficult, you're trying to get out there in the cybersecurity community, or you're trying to pair up with a mentor, don't give up if that first experience is awkward and difficult. Keep pursuing it, because those relationships are going to pay off in big dividends for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for taking the time. This is going to wrap up our session here today. On behalf of Josh Copeland, Kyle Dickinson, Simon Pope, Kathy Harp, and myself, Dave Bittner, I want to thank all of you for spending this time with us here today. I feel like it was time well spent. We appreciate everyone who made this possible, our friends at Devo, and we hope to see you back again here soon. Thanks, everybody, and do take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.